Hello there, welcome to Fastcuts. Everything is included in the movie titled Cold Zone. The main actors were Steve Bassick, Martin Cummins, Lauren K. Robeck, Nick Percha, etc. This one is a pure entertainer movie. Cold Zone is an action, science fiction movie directed by John McCarthy in the year 2017. At the beginning of the movie, we can see an office of the meteorological department in an area covered in snow. 3 people were working there. One was Victor, and the other one was Brad. It was the last working day of Victor, as he was about to retire from service. They were discussing their job and retirements. Then they noticed one of the 3 signal lines in their office is not working. Then Brad went out and walked slowly through the snow to reach the signal tower. While he was repairing the connections, he noticed the national flag on the tower started waving very fast suddenly. He got frightened and looked in the direction of the wind. He was shocked to see a frightening scene of a very high and thick snowstorm coming in their direction. Brad was surprised and looked at it, not knowing what to do. In the office, Victor and the other person were celebrating with drinks. Then they noticed the temperature in the office device coming down very fast to -98 CF. They have seen such a sharp decline in temperature for the first time. Suddenly they called Brad to return to the office. Brad ran through the snow very fast, but the snowstorm was approaching very fast. Just before reaching the office, Brad skidded and fell. That super powerful snowstorm covered Brad and he was frozen there. Realizing that the storm will cover them, Victor and friend closed the door of the office after getting inside. Their office floor and doors were as a result of the ice storm. In all news channels, the news and pictures of the ice storm were fully covered. Though it lasted for a few seconds, the storm has made extreme damage to the country. Train services were fully paralyzed. All places where the storm came have been frozen. Flights were frozen. Water has been frozen, and as a result, ships and boats got stuck. The people were frightened. In the next scene, we can see a family traveling from South Florida to Alaska in Canada in their car. They were a father, mother and their 20-year-old son named Jordan. The father was an inquisitive ornithologist, and his name was Dr. Roger Summers. The mother, Candace, was a doctor and came there to work in a clinic. They reached the house of a teenage girl named Claire to stay there. Dr. Roger and Candace knew the girl earlier. They introduced Claire to Jordan. Claire's parents are staying in New Mexico. Claire was staying alone in that house. Then they went to their rooms to take rest. The next day morning, when Candace came down to the dining room, she was surprised to see her son Jordan there. It was the first time she saw Jordan getting up so early in his life. They were discussing his school days when Jordan was very reluctant to get up in the morning to go to school. Claire also came there and they were talking for some time. Then Candace went to the clinic nearby for work. Jordan and Claire went out to see nearby places on their bicycles. Claire was explaining the peculiarities of each place there to Jordan. They had hot chocolate from a hotel there. When Jordan came out to take his bicycle, one person passed very near to Jordan in a 2-wheeler. Jordan got angry. Claire told him that he is Mr. Watson, who always drinks and behaves like this. Then Jordan and Claire continued their sightseeing. Roger was walking outside in the snow to study the specific nature of that place. He saw a migratory bird dead there and picked it up. He covered that bird in a plastic cover and kept it in his bag and continued his walking. Then he reached the house of reclusive environmental scientist Dr. Tim Hughes. They introduced each other and discussed the disaster. Dr. Tim was living there for a long, and he said it is the first time he witnessed such a terrific disaster. Tim also told him that the Earth is heading for death, and every person should join hands to revamp the Earth. When Tim told that migratory birds arrived much earlier this year and might have been trapped in the storm, Roger showed the dead bird he had in his bag. Tim told Roger that it might have died because of the severe cold last night. Roger opined that it is not just because of the low temperature, but something serious might have happened to the weather. While discussing, Roger noticed the research center on the map in Tim's house. Tim explained a lot about the research center to Roger. They decided to visit the research center the next day, and Roger said bye to Tim and left the place. While returning, Roger called up his wife and suggested having dinner together the next day. He said he will come there the next day to pick up her and Jordan. When Candace informed Jordan about this, he was getting angry and said he is not coming. It was the first time he came to that place. It was not easy for him to shift to another place, as he will be missing the dear ones at that place. The snowstorm reached another place that evening and froze everything there. The next day morning, Roger reached the Tim's house, and they together went to the research center on a bike, which was far away. The place was covered with snow. They called for somebody in the office, but no responses were received. Then they opened the door and searched there in torchlight. As there was no electricity there at that time, they saw the frozen dead body of Victor behind a curtain and realized that the deadly snow entered the building through the door gaps and froze the remaining 2 people. Roger and Tim continued their search and examined the reports very carefully. Claire and Jordan were enjoying their life on bicycles. Claire took Jordan to a lonely place where snow was coming. She took out a whistle from her pocket and told Jordan that she will show some magic. She blew that whistle. Suddenly the snow in that area moved away. Jordan liked the whistle very much. Claire whistled to Jordan and asked him to blow it. When he did so, the snow was moving according to the sound of the whistle. In the research office, while Tim was checking data in the device, Roger went out to Signal Tower. He saw the frozen dead body of Brad lying there. Suddenly a powerful snowstorm began to blow, and Roger ran to the office and closed the door. That snowstorm entered the office building through the door gaps and froze some parts of the office. Tim and Roger sat near the fire and put more wooden logs into the fire. In the meantime, Jordan returned to the clinic and Claire returned home. Jordan narrated his journey and experiences with Claire to his mother. After listening to Jordan, his mother insisted on him to go dinner with his father and went to check on the patients. After telling Jordan to wait, Jordan waited there checking the whistle given by Claire. Roger and Tim were looking at the device in the research center after the snowstorm. They were discussing the change in weather, and based on the results and reports and data in the device, they presumed that it might be a sort of typhoon related to space. They were unaware of how the temperature in the atmosphere comes down sharply and how to solve the issue. For the first time, they are experiencing such a dramatic change in the weather. After studying the available resources and discussions, they have concluded that the air in the atmosphere gets extremely cool and acquires more density so that it can freeze anything and transforms into a storm which results in a disaster. Their next doubt was whether this storm will come everywhere at the same time. They have got an answer for this also. They concluded that the holes in the ozone layer lead to such disasters. Based on their studies, they were sure that in the coming days, the duration of snowstorms will be more, and it will be more powerful, and even a blast may occur in the country. They realized that though the storm occurs only once a day at present, it may repeat many times in a day in the coming days. They wanted to save the country from this disaster, but they had no idea how to save it. They were seeking ways to escape from that country. The snowstorm was blowing heavily in that area that evening. At the same time, Mr. Watson came boozed in his motorbike. On seeing the storm coming, Mr. Watson tried to escape, but the heavy snowstorm passed him, leaving Watson dead and frozen. In the clinic, Jordan and his mother's friend, a nurse, were talking about Claire, and the nurse said that she knows Claire very well, and she is a girl of good character. Suddenly electricity went off and Jordan put on the generator. When Candace started talking to her son Jordan, a patient came there and she went to attend him. Another doctor who was working in that clinic brought the dead body of Mr. Watson there. Jordan was surprised to see Watson's body and looked at it pathetically. Candace came back after examining the patient and asked the nurse whether her husband Roger reached there or called her. When the nurse replied no, she was feeling miserable and had tension in her face. The nurse saw her tension and pacified her, saying that nothing will happen to Roger and that he will reach soon to take her with him. Then she returned to the clinic to examine her patients. Roger and Tim were in the research center, making plans to get prior knowledge on the blowing wind and the snowstorm which follows. First, they learned the time interval of the snowstorm and how long it will last. Then they fixed a special device in their watch to get prior intimation on the snowstorm and also to escape from the coming storms. After making these plans, Roger requested Tim also to accompany him to escape from that country, but Tim rejected his request, even though Roger compelled him a lot, saying that he will die if he continued to stay there. Tim insisted that Roger should inform his family about the upcoming snowstorms and save his family. News channels were broadcasting news about the disaster and said that 4 million people in that country are in a helpless situation without any mode of communication. They are not able to seek the help of other people for food and shelter. Jordan was watching the news and told his mother that he will search for his father, but his mother declined to say that. They don't even know where he is at present, and we don't know where to search. She asked him to stay with her, and his father will come back very soon. At the same time, Roger was returning from the research center, leaving Tim alone there. Tim was searching for something in the device there. On the way back, Roger called his wife, but remained unattended as the phone was in silent mode. Then Roger called his son Jordan and he attended the phone. Jordan was happy and asked Roger where he is and told him to come back very soon. Roger informed Jordan about the drastic snowstorm about to come. Roger asked Jordan where is he at present, and he replied in the clinic along with his mother. Roger advised him not to go anywhere from the clinic, and within a short period, a heavy snowstorm will freeze the place called Pemberton. Roger also informed him that he will join them shortly. Roger called Tim too. Jordan informed her mother about the coming storm, and she advised everybody in the clinic not to go out, but the patients did not took her advice seriously, saw it as a silly matter, and left the clinic despite her repeated requests and warnings. She was watching all these helplessly. Only one patient was left there ultimately. Roger continued his travel, and in between, he was checking the direction of the snowstorm on the device fixed on his watch. He was searching for a shelter, and at last, he could find one between ice blocks. He made a cave-like place in between the ice blocks and covered it with ice after sitting inside. He waited there in candlelight until the storm stops. Because of the heavy snowstorm, the buildings were frozen and broken pieces were falling like glass pieces. People were frightened to watch all this. While one lady was taking photographs of a giant wheel there, the storm came and froze that giant wheel in seconds, and it fell, which resulted in huge damage. When the storm was over, Roger came out of his shelter and continued his journey very carefully to meet his family. In the clinic, Jordan pleaded with his mother that he wants to save Claire and take her with his family. He was so tense, but she did not allow him as it was not safe to go out of the building. Then the nurse came and informed her that the last patient also left. She signed the discharge papers and becomes very sad. While she was signing the discharge papers, Jordan went to Claire's house quickly on his bicycle. The storm was also just behind him. Claire was sitting inside frightened and covered with a blanket. Jordan blew the whistle and opened the door and came out. Suddenly Jordan went upstairs and got inside with her and closed the door. In a few seconds, the stair and doors become froze as the snowstorm approached. Roger reached the shop of a lady, Fiona, for a special truck for his family to escape from that country. Roger realized that it is time for the next storm from his device. He entered the shop and went to a safe room along with that lady. He explained to her about the snowstorms, and though she was frightened a little in the beginning, she regained the courage to face all these. Roger assured her to save her also along with his family. They waited in the room, and when the storm was over, came out with the lady. In the research office, Tim was preparing plans to get saved from the storms. Roger and Fiona repaired the truck and drove it very fast to reach the clinic. He called Candace and Jordan. Then Candace told him that Jordan is not there. Then Roger told her that they can escape from that place after taking Jordan and Claire along with them. Candace requested the nurse to also come with them, but she closed the doors and said she is not coming as the clinic was her favorite place. Candace said goodbye to her, and they all went near Claire's house in the truck. Candace opened the door and searched for Jordan and Claire. She saw them sleeping covered in blankets near the firebox. She called them and suddenly they got up and all become happy. They all entered the truck and started the journey. They wanted to escape from that country at the earliest. When covered some distance, Roger's device showed signs of the next snowstorm. Roger and Fiona opened the back door of the truck and sat there with other people. After the storm, Roger opened the back door of the truck to see many people who got frozen in their vehicles. Every person in those vehicles was dead. With a sorrowful faces, Roger and Fiona reached the driver's seat. Then they noticed a signal of low gas shown in the truck. Roger told Fiona that they should reach the airport quickly, and from there they can escape by helicopter. He also warned that a storm will come before that, and they have to cross the bridge before that to escape. Fiona assured Roger that she will drive the truck to the other side of the bridge at any cost and take the driver's seat. Roger brought a few blankets for Fiona from the backside. Roger went back to sit with his family. Fiona drove the vehicle with increased courage. After going a while, a signal of the next storm was shown on the device. Everybody was covered with blankets, and Fiona also covered herself with a few blankets and drove the truck to the other side of the bridge. Though the storm covered the truck, she was driving it despite being tired very much. She put all her efforts to cross the bridge, and as soon as the truck reached the other side, she put her head down and sit there as she was lost completely. After some time, when the storm was over, Roger opened the back door and went to the front driving seat. What Roger and his family saw was very tragic. Fiona was frozen. They looked at her body very sadly. They ran to the airport and saw a red helicopter there. They all were pulled up to the helicopter with ropes. They saw another powerful snowstorm coming and entered the helicopter in no time. They tried to lift the helicopter, but they were not able to see anything in that snow-covered place. Somehow they managed to lift the helicopter up and escaped from the storm. Their faces were showing glimpses of hope and expectations. While they were traveling in the helicopter, they saw heavy storms destroying everything. They all managed to escape from the country with new hopes. Hope you all loved this video. Let's meet again with another one soon. Thank you.